welcome to another episode of the Clarion Cost podcast. My name is Ellie Howard-Taylor, Paralegal in the Costs and Litigation Funding team. Here with me today we've got Michael Culver, Chair of the SFE and Director of Culver Law. Welcome.
Thank you.
So today me and Michael are going to talk a little bit to you about the Clarion Costs Masterclass and also the SFE. So, delving in for those who don't know you, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Michael Culver. I'm a panel deputy and I'm Managing Director of Culver Law, which is a boutique kind of private client law firm that I set up about 16 months ago now in the City of London.
Okay.
I was saying today we were actually right opposite the Court of Protection and the first Holborn House, whatever it's called, the court building. Anyway, just off Chancery Lane. So I'm also chair of SFE, Solicitors for the Elderly, the membership organisation. We have about 1,500 members across England and Wales. So.
A lot of people want to get involved.
That's it. It's a big group.
Yeah. So for those who weren't at the masterclass today, you were involved with the panel.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us a little bit about your role within the SFE and just sort of how it works?
Yeah. So I'm chair of the main board. So I guess ultimately the staff report into me. I spend a lot of time working with the CEO and strategising the organisation and working out what direction we're going in and where we're going, where we're moving forward, that sort of thing. I get a lot involved in a lot of side projects as well. What more do you want me to tell you, really?
Do you want to tell us a little bit about the SFE itself?
Yeah, so we, as I say, we're a membership organisation across England and Wales, although we do have members in Northern Ireland and a few in Scotland as well. It's more kind of generic private client than anything else. It's a not-for-profit as well, I should flag. And it's the organisation's been around, about 25 years now.
Oh, wow.
I think I'm right in saying. And its objectives are to kind of improve private client law, really, and make sure that vulnerable members of our society are getting the best advice that they can. So there's a lot of training that goes into it. There's also a lot of collaboration between members. Okay. So training is a big focus and making sure that members are giving the best advice possible. But we do a lot of focus on the kind of client service skills as well. Right. So it's one thing being a really good technical lawyer, but you need to be able to explain that to members of the public, and that's something we focus on a lot with some of our training and our elements around it. And then the other big factor that SFE gives our members is that joined up kind of community, really, where members can call on each other, because especially in smaller firms, it can be a bit of a lonely place sometimes, not knowing where to turn in this area of law that can cover such a wide variety of subjects.
I was going to say, and then especially with Court of Protection being so niche, you can often find yourself not really knowing where to fall back to and not knowing who to go to and who to ask. And I suppose with such a wide variety of members, there's always somebody who can answer your question and can just be there. Yeah,
I mean, there's specialisms coming within private client itself now, and this was something you didn't have when I started out. Was you were a private client lawyer or you're a wills and probate lawyer. You did a bit of all of it, really, but there's more and more specialisms coming within it. So we're having Court of Protection specialists now, and we've had that for a while now. Yeah. Those who just do Court of Protection work. The kind of more traditional wills and probate lawyer is kind of just focusing now on estates and maybe wills themselves, and that's kind of part of the role. You have trust specialists now, there's tax specialists, there's those that might focus on businesses only. So it is really broad, just as a kind of a specialism within a specialism. Really.
I suppose you can say Court of Protection lawyer, but when you delve down into it, you could do one of a number of topics.
I mean, personally, I'm a panel deputy, so I run a huge amount of property and affairs, Court of Protection matters. I'm also a chartered tax advisor, so I've gone and done extra qualifications in tax and if I decide to stop acting as a solicitor at some point, I can call myself a tax advisor as well, and kind of go down that route. I do wills and estates as well still, and I advise business owners. So the whole kind of spectrum of private client I still do, and a big battle and challenge is keeping yourself up to date in every single area of it, of course. So, and the interesting thing is, being a deputy, you need, I think, that knowledge of some of the other areas, because it's the type of things that you come up with.
It's not as typical as being a deputy. You do one thing.
Yeah.
You cover numerous
Get involved in a lot of places.
A number of different topics.
Yeah.
And I suppose, being a man of many trades, you can quite easily cover all the topics for all your clients.
Yeah, I mean, I have employees for me who just specialise in certain areas, and not a big firm by any stretch, but I've got a solicitor, for instance, who focuses just on the Court of Protection side, and I'm shortly bringing in a solicitor who's just going to focus on the kind of estate administration side of things. But I need to keep my fingers in all the pies, really, and kind of keep my knowledge up to date across the board. And as a decision maker, as a deputy, you need that. And I'm always stressing to deputies, don't forget about your tax issues. And I sometimes do training for deputies around tax in particular, and say to people, look, yes, you can sell that property, or yes, you can do this or do that, but don't forget about your income tax, your capital gains tax, and your inheritance tax implications that are going to come from what you're proposing to do. So that's just something that has to be factored into the best interest decision making.
Yeah. Very good. So sort of delving back to the masterclass.
Yeah.
Obviously we've just had that. It was a great day, great success.
Yeah, it really was.
Can you just, for those who didn't come and for those at home, can you just sort of give a brief overview of the day, what your initial thoughts, how did it go?
It was great, it wasn't just your cold law that we covered today. It was really different, I think, in terms of
there were a number of different
on
topics,
offer. Yeah. So I was involved in part of a panel discussion at the end with Martin Terrell from the PDF and the lady from Copper.
Kate Edwards.
Kate, sorry, I forgot her name for a moment. Kate Edwards from Copper. And we were talking about kind of how the organisations work together and what our kind of plans and objectives are for the next 12 months. Before that, we had a really interesting talk on cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, and lots of scary words like the metaverse or metaverse.
It sparked a few questions and conversations, that one, didn't it?
It did, and it was, what was interesting about that is it's kind of not something that we see in practice all that often right now. I have dealt with wills for people with cryptocurrencies and things like this, but and that's some particular focus on, but obviously when it comes up in an estate, what do you do, where do you turn, and when someone's lost capacity who has a lot of money in Bitcoin, for instance, what do you do about it? And it was really evident that certainly those in the room, and I think probably wider in the profession, don't have this expertise to deal with this right now.
And I think it's something that you need to get into, and like Ben said, it's forever changing, and I think the world's coming more towards digital. It certainly is coming towards online. It needs to be in the back of people's mind a little bit as to what it is, and when it comes up, what do I do with it?
Yeah, this is it, and things like where it's stored, where the information's stored, what happens if you lose those storage devices. It's really, really interesting conversation, and I think you could probably design a whole day around this.
I think we need to next time.
Trying to get people to come might be a challenge, but it was actually really interesting and a little bit frightening to hear about. But the digital world is already with us, isn't it? And it's only going to grow. So it's something that I still think of myself as a younger practitioner. It's something I need to get in touch with a bit more before a few more grey hairs appear.
And then before that, we had Stephanie Kay.
So Steph did a really good talk on costs and 10 do's and don'ts for deputies and their files, which was great. And I kept thinking about her talk actually during the cryptocurrency, is how you explain to the SCCO that you're investigating things in the metaverse. I think would be a bit of a challenge. That's a trial and error one, I think, isn't it? And maybe you get enhanced rates if you've got cryptocurrency.
Potentially, one to try.
You could try that. And then prior to that we had the gentleman from Chroma.
Daniel Thomas.
Yes, Dan was really good. Talking about kind of different therapies and different bits that they're involved in. And I know they did some resilience training for the PDF recently, which was really good. Because again, it's a challenging job, and you get a lot of stress and a lot of transferred stress from your clients and their relatives all the time. So that Chroma's involvement with that was really good, and it was really good training the PDF put on actually. It's from Rook Erwin Sweeney talking about the CARE Act and the obligations on local authorities, and helping us kind of challenge their payments towards someone's care package, basically. And again, that was interesting, because you do get a lot of issues in practice where the local authority is telling you one thing, and generally you tend to accept their view on a lot of things. And he was kind of helping set deputies straight on that, and making really clear what was lawful, what's not for local authorities, and giving you a bit more ammunition to push back sometimes.
Yeah.
So
it was a really good
useful talk as well.
And I know you mentioned a little bit about the NHS and their funding towards sort of the clients, so definitely it was one to look into more. Yeah,
and he's a health and welfare specialist, really, so we're a room mostly of property and affairs deputies. It was interesting to get that kind of insight.
And get his perspective from it, definitely. So moving on, what was your favourite part of the day? And you can't say the food. I know it is the best part for some people.
It was very good food. I mean, surviving the snowstorm on the way here. Favourite part of the day. I quite enjoyed the panel at the end, but I think probably the crypto discussion, as scary as it was really, really interesting. I mean, it went on longer than it should have done.
People got involved there, which I think was really good, and showed that people were interested.
Definitely, and it's something that maybe hasn't been covered enough in any of the organisations to have training, really, and as we saw today, it really is coming. So that was something very different to what we focused on before, and it was good to have that day purely for deputies and the problems that we face, rather than a more general Court of Protection Masterclass.
Well, I was just going to say, for those who have not attended one of the masterclasses before, I know this year's a little bit different in that we've tailored it towards the deputies, but what would you say to somebody who hasn't been before?
I definitely come along. I'm not just saying that because I'm here and you're forcing me to say that, but no, it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. As I say, there was a lot to take away from it, and it's practical tips that you can put into practice straight away, rather than just cold law and facts, which we can get anywhere and we hear every day. This is a lot more. Go away and use this and put this into practice. So I feel that's what training needs to be, really, just not giving you just the background information and the why, but the how. And that's really what I took away from today.
Very good. And completely changing the topic, what do you think are the main burning issues for professional deputies?
We're saying this as part of the panel discussion, actually. It's just delays everywhere right now. And you think all these wonderful digital systems that different organisations have brought in, and everything seems slower than ever before. And that just seems to be a constant battle, getting anyone to engage efficiently right now is really, really tough. And it starts from the court and getting your order in the first place, and doesn't ever stop. And the fact that we've got lots of restrictions in orders now. So when I started as a panel deputy, you'd get quite wide powers, and you could actually implement and do things for your client. And now it's, you want to scratch your nose, you have to go back to the court to ask permission for it, it feels.
And then you're waiting 6 or 7 months for them to come back and
at least 6 or 7 months. I mean, you might get an order pretty quickly, but the order won't be sent to you for another 6 weeks, if you're lucky, beyond that. So it's taking months and months, and you're almost at the point where I get a deputy order, my client's in a care home, they've got no money, they've got no assets, but they've got a property. And I need to go back and I need to find a way to pay for their care fees. And yet I can't sell and I can't charge their house. So my order is good for nothing, basically. First thing I've got to do is turn tail, go back to the court and say, please give me an order that I can actually use, and do something on P's behalf. And you're waiting possibly up to 12 months again to actually get anywhere. And meanwhile, you're being screamed at by the care home, who aren't necessarily getting paid. Local authority maybe, who may be picking up the bill in the meantime.
Yeah.
Family members who are concerned. The house might be falling down and in wreck and ruin.
I mean, while you're just waiting for a court order. It's
yeah.
the biggest issue I think that we've got at the moment is the court delays, regardless of the SCCO delays.
Yeah.
I think more importantly the court delays is something that are a lot more important. Just for getting them orders to start looking after them clients.
I think a lack maybe of enough thought when the orders are being made as well in terms, and I don't want to criticise the judiciary in that respect, because they are reliant in many ways on what's applied for, but one of the things that I've been working on with some of the local authorities that make the applications that I deal with is making clear to them that, you know, if they don't put in they want the deputy to have permission to sell the property, chances are we're not going to get it, and then we're back to the court again. So it's just making sure that those repeat applicants for panel deputies in particular to be appointed are getting that in their initial application. I have seen that though, whether they've put it in and the court hasn't included it. So there's a bit of, you know, where's you point the finger really going on, but yeah, it's really practically difficult with that delay. And then, as I say, you get screamed at from all sides.
You can't really win in any situation, can you?
And then you have delays at the other end of the process where you're trying to get paid for the work that you've been trying to do. And again, Culver Law has been going 16 months now. I've said a few times throughout today that we've not had a bill of costs come back from the SCCO yet.
It's crazy.
It's painful. Yeah. And, you know, cash flow is a problem. And I was talking to another deputy at a much bigger firm than mine, and he's having some real battles with his managing partner right now, who doesn't think it's cost effective for him to remain on the panel and to do court protection work, because yes, he can only bill certain rates, which are a lot less than they would bill for estate administration work, for example, and you can only bill 75% of that lower rate, and you're waiting, you know, possibly a year, possibly more for, you know, the uplift to come, if it comes.
And meanwhile, all the expenses are still leaving the firm.
Yeah.
Someone's got to get paid at some point. And
there's a lot of pressure on firms as well to pay for things up front.
Okay.
So we often before we've even had the physical order at the office, we've got to pay the bond. And the bond providers are, you know, upset that they've not been paid yet, and they're kicking off, and then you might get the supervision invoice through from the OPG.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking, I haven't actually had an order to send anywhere yet to get me access to any money yet, and yet I'm expected to pay out for these things, and, you know, we've got to pay them. So often I'm making loans to my clients before I even get an order through the door, and there's no real, I guess, recognition from the OPG or from the powers that be in that sense that we're having to do this, and any support for deputies to do that.
They don't really understand, do they? No. As much as they do their best to do what they do, they're not really in that deputy's shoe in terms of what they actually have to go through. Like you said, paying those invoices when you've not got access to any money yet. Will you ever get paid for them back? You don't know, and there's so many inconsistencies, I think.
Definitely.
Across the board. That need to be ironed out.
Financial pressures come up all the time. Like, bits have to be paid for clients, and you sit there often as a deputy and you're banging your head against the wall because you just cannot get anyone to appreciate that you haven't got access to their funds yet, and there's issues and whatnot, and there's financial pressures in terms of maybe there is a property, maybe there is funds that can come, but you can't get access to it, you can't sell it, for instance, or you can't get equity release or some form of loan on the property to secure it. So even a charge over my own fees isn't doable, you know. And then a lot of panel work, we're talking about real later life clients, so often they die during the deputyship period as well, and of course then authority comes to an end. And I have a case on right now where sadly P has just died after I've been his deputy for about 2 years. But there is so much animosity in the family, it's going to be a huge contentious probate dispute. Wow. And it might be 2 years before we see any payment from it, basically. And we're talking a lot of money that's tied up for that time.
Shouldn't be the case, should it? But I suppose unfortunately it is.
I have another case where I'm actually paying for the privilege of being her deputy right now, because I'm having to pay things out on her behalf whilst we're waiting for some money to be released. And all right, it's kind of a few hundred here, a few hundred there. It's not necessarily going to break the bank, but if I find myself having to do that for 70 odd clients, I've got no business to worry about, basically.
No.
So.
Well, hopefully the working groups, the SFE, COPA and the PDF can work with the authorities to fix some things, that something needs to be done.
There's a lot of discussions going on around it, and there's work being done with lenders as well to see if we can get more of an appetite for supporting those in this space and supporting Ps themselves, because often you'll find just trying to borrow money for someone who's incapacitated is really impossible, and organisations won't necessarily engage with a deputy. They won't necessarily even understand what a deputy order is. Like a power of attorney is something I must say every week. Often people don't know what powers of attorney are either, so it's a constant ongoing battle.
We'll get there at some point.
Yeah.
And finally, just going back to the SFE, is there anything going on this year? Is there a conference? Is there anything people can get involved with?
There is. So Solicitors for the Elderly will not exist by the end of 2023.
Okay.
So we're not closing, we're just rebranding. And it's been kind of driven by the fact that people don't like the word elderly. It's not politically correct anymore. People don't like it. Nobody classes themselves as elderly, apparently. So elderly is a big no-no of a word. And then yet the organisation isn't made up just of solicitors either.
Okay.
We have barristers members, we have chartered legal executives as members, we have student members who are working towards qualification. So the word solicitors doesn't really suit us either anymore. And I did suggest we just go to FORDA, but I think it wasn't very popular. So we've done a proper rebrand exercise, and we have a new name coming.
Exciting.
And it's not just a new name though; it's a new direction for the organisation. That's something I should stress. So we focus on older people and later life issues as an organisation, but a lot of our work is done with vulnerable people. And the message, I guess, is that who's vulnerable? Everyone can be vulnerable at different periods of their life for different reasons. Maybe a relationship breakup or a bereavement of something that they've had to incur, or it might just be a temporary illness or injury that they've suffered. So, and it's when people are vulnerable, they need perhaps that legal assistance the most, and that's really what our organisation is designed to focus on. And anyway, this huge rebrand going on. And the big reveal will happen on the 22nd of June at our annual conference this year. So it's open to members and non-members. Okay. So feel free to come down to London and see. It should be a really interesting day. We've actually built the day around a case study.
Okay.
And there's tax issues on it. There's estate issues. I think there's trust issues. There's some capacity issues as well. So it's something for everyone really in the private client space. Come and get their teeth into, and we've got some really good speakers lined up. So it should be a really good technical day.
So you got the date in your diaries, 22nd of June?
Yes, 22nd of June. Yeah.
And people can buy tickets online?
Buy tickets, yeah, if you visit the SFE website, come and get tickets.
SFE, not to be SFE at the end of the year.
No, this is it, yeah, it's all changing,
Well, thank you very much for joining us and giving us a little in-depth into yourself, the Clarion Masterclass and the SFE work. We hope you've enjoyed listening today. Thank you, Michael, for joining us again, and we'll see you on the next episode.